So I've been finding it really important to be able to rely on people that you respect. And my goal is to bring more Black women in my space to collaborate with. So I want to see more of a reflection, and I think that'll bring out great ideas too.
RadioShow. It is your host, iancomplex, and today I have another special guest, hot off the debut of a film. Super exciting. Shianne, how you doing? Welcome to the
Good.
show.
How are you? Thank you for having
Very,
me.
very, very, very good. Yes. How do you feel now that Jaded is out in the world?
I feel free because
You feel
I've been holding on to it. It's been in my back pocket since this time last year.
Wow.
And I was just like, I don't know if I want to show it. Like, it's there, it's done. But yeah, like I knew I was gonna show up, and then like it just kept getting away from me, and then I was finally like, oh my god, it's a new year, I need to drop it. And yeah, I love that it's 2023. I love the number 3, so it's like, okay, let's do it. Black History Month, the whole thing. So
yeah.
it came together. It came together.
Nah, I was watching it again today, and just to get ready for this, and
Cool.
it's so good, and not trying to like just
so
tell
much.
you that because you're here right now, but it was really amazing, and it was very heavy, surprisingly, and I kind of want to know about the process of you writing that and how you got the idea, and just walk me through that if you can.
Yeah, well, okay, so I'll give you the whole story. So I went to the University of Miami. This is my diploma right here. I graduated.
Yeah.
I graduated in December of 2021. I should have, quote unquote, graduated in May 2021, but I could have actually graduated a year before I had enough credits. But the thing is that I just kept taking semesters off because I found it really hard to be motivated in college. I really love the content of my classes. I really love my professors, and I love learning, but like the school structure just wasn't for me. And I was a commuter student. I live in Hollywood, so it was a really far drive to Coral Gables all the time. It was really tough. So I just didn't really have motivation to do more than the bare minimum. And so I was like, I would just take a semester off because I'm like, I just don't want to do this right now. I don't want to drive. I'd rather just work for a little bit, hang with my friends. And then, so this was like in the heat of a semester off. It was the springtime of 2021. Yeah. That semester I should have graduated, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to school because I only had one semester left worth of things. And I was like, okay, I should make a final project to cap this all up, make it worth something. Yeah, so, and I was really, frankly, in a dark place at the time, and I was really depressed, and I had no motivation, but I felt like, oh my god, like I have to go back to school like this. I'm wasting so much time. I need to get my degree. And I was like, I just have to be able to write something out of like the emotions that I feel. So it's totally a fictional story, but just like some of the dialogue are things that people have said to me that I've said. And just like the mood, I just wanted to capture like my inner mood at that time, because even though it's like a family drama romance, like I feel like at its core it's about like picking up the pieces after life just does its thing. And so that's just what I was going through. And so I was like, I knew I wanted it to be like a snappy story. I wanted it to take place in one day. So I was like, okay, it's their birthday, the person's birthday, and then what happened to them. So yeah, that's how it came to be. And I wrote the script. It took about a month to write it. The first iteration was actually like more of a dramedy. It had comedic elements.
Really?
There were 5 characters. There was like a comedic relief character completely. And our lead character had a sister. So they didn't make it in the final
Interesting.
cut.
I would love
Yeah,
to see that version of the script because that seems so different. But I could see how it would make sense to add some more
it
like
was a
to
natural
that.
evolution, I would say,
Yeah,
to the more dramatic, serious version, and
yeah,
I'm happy that we got to that point. But I
yeah,
think, yeah, it was a cool starting off point, I think, to see it like evolve that way, because it really was just the main reason why we cut it down is because it just would have been too complicated to shoot. Like
yeah,
5
yeah,
characters is a lot to manage. There was
yeah,
like a car scene. There just too much
yeah,
ado when you add more characters.
yeah.
So yeah, I was like, let me just simplify, 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 and that's how we get it to this refined point. Yeah, and then we
That's
shot it in November 2021, right before I graduated. So
wow. So oh wow. So was that like a good feeling to get that done and then be like, all right, cool. Now I'm out completely out of this
yep,
kind of thing that was holding me back.
yeah, and it like I took back my power in that because I was such a
Yeah,
floater in school because I was a commuter. I didn't want to join any clubs because they cost money. Like I was like
yeah,
I'm a Broward girl. Like I love my Miami friends, but I'm a Broward girl at heart. So this is just where I would spend my time. I just didn't want to be involved
right.
really outside of things that I didn't have to leave my house to do. So I like to write, and I did my radio show because we could do them virtually,
Yeah,
but I just never wanted to like be there. And so, I don't think professors were particularly impressed with me. I had professors that liked me because I'm just like sociable and I like to talk to people and I find myself relating to older people. Not maybe not relating, but just it's easier to admire older people because they really have, and I find myself admiring people a lot. So I just like to talk to people. So I had relationships with professors, but not based on like me as a student really. And it was just crazy because I did Jaded, and then it premieres at the school film festival in May. And I just went for the first day. I didn't even go for the award ceremony. I just went for the first day
yeah,
just to go. Just I was like, okay, my film is in there. And then we ended up winning pretty much every award. And like
right,
I suddenly became the most popular person on campus for a moment. And it's like I don't even go here anymore.
right.
You guys didn't even know I went here in the first place. Um, literally my entire crew, none of them even went to you. I'm like everyone was like, who is this person? And like what is your story? And I'm like,
Out of
I don't have
nowhere.
time
Yeah,
for this, guys. I already
yeah.
graduated.
Thank you. No
But
pictures. I'm sorry.
it was cool. It was cool.
Yeah,
Um, Here is the trophy right here for best directing.
that's crazy.
And it was just I didn't even accept the award because I was like, oh, I'm not gonna win. There were so many films like. So my
Like,
our actress Kemi, who played Xana, she accepted the awards.
wow,
Yeah,
that's a crazy series of events to
yeah,
happen,
it was a
and that
lot.
must feel like again, like I know we've spoken about it just now, but that release of that to be kind of like, hey, like good job that you did this, because this
Yeah.
is what can happen when you kind of get out of that kind of situation. That's really beautiful. I know you mentioned the radio show briefly, which was kind of like crazy. Like me reading all the things you do, I was just like, this. Like when do you have time to just like relax and kick back? Because
You'd be surprised because I do a lot of relaxing.
okay, so we
That's
gotta
my
talk about that
favorite
later.
thing to do.
Because I need tips on that because
Is just
I'm
doing nothing. Lying on the ground and doing nothing is my favorite thing to do.
just taking the sun
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
vibing. But tell me about how you got a radio show and the
Yeah.
story behind the name "Living for the City." Because I was just blasting the song just now in preparation.
Yeah, it's a cool song.
It's a
Um,
good.
yeah, so I went to UM and we
Yeah,
have, um, it's just a fact, the
yeah,
best college radio station in at least South Florida, but I would even say Florida. We're pretty rad. It's called WVUM, The Voice,
yeah,
which it stands for the Underground Voice of Miami. So it's really unique because as a college station, like we are the only alternative station for Miami. The only other alternative station is Fort Lauderdale. I forget what it's called. I think it's called the Shark or something. And they just play like
oh
alternative
yeah,
top 40, and I hate it so
yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
WVRM is true alt music. Like it's true college radio, what college radio was in like the 80s and
yeah,
the 90s. Like we play a
yeah.
lot of underground shit, but I actually was a pop show. So, but and that's just to talk about WVOM a little bit. Really cool station. Definitely tune in. 90.5 FM. It gets a little bit spotty the more north you go. So like even me in Hollywood, sometimes it sucks, which
I
is
don't get
I
it.
feel like really offensive because
Yeah,
like
they should
this
fix
is
that.
my station.
Yeah, right.
I'm not trying to call anybody out, but I feel like they should take care of that.
Get on that. They're listening. They're listening.
you can stream online for whatever, but I'm like, I'm in my car like majority of
Yeah.
my day. Like I just want to listen to it on the radio. But anyway, it's a great station. But when you're on for a semester, you have to do a rotation show of just like the songs that we just own as a station, like that
Mm-hmm.
we have access to, which is like so many different things, like
Yeah.
what's new in the indie scene, really really underground stuff, dance, R&B, everything, really cool stuff. But you do that for a semester, and then after a semester you can pitch your own show, like a specialty show is what we call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
um yeah, a specialized concept. And I just always knew I wanted a show because I was like, I just feel like that's just so me, but I didn't know what it would be.
Yeah.
um but then I started listening to Nina Simone a lot, and I just started thinking about like how, I guess, liberating a lot of her music was, like for the Black liberation and civil rights. And I was like, yeah, Black history just like has such a rich history of like protest music, and
Yeah.
but it's also just so soulful, like, and meaningful, and like, you know these songs about resistance and overcoming, like they're also just really great songs. They're so
Yeah.
danceable. Like if you're not listening to the lyrics, like you can still, you're just vibing in bliss. And if you are listening to the lyrics, you're probably really inspired. So it's really cool. And so it just hit me. I was like, I just have to do like a Black Power show.
Yeah.
And at first I was gonna just pitch it as a protest show, and then I was like, that's limiting. I feel like Black artists being in genres that you don't expect them to be, like outside of funk, outside of
Mm-hmm.
R&B, like being in
Mm-hmm.
the indie space, alternative,
Yeah.
electronic. That's what excited me, and I was like, that feels like a form of protest, like resistance. Just like, so I
Yeah.
just feel like the idea of just Black people just doing is political, and like, whether we like it or not. So I felt like the ethos of it being a Black Power show would stand if I just made the show literally just Black artists doing their thing, no limitation on the decade or genre.
Yeah.
And I would mix it, like, like if I'm doing an electronic show, I'm going all the way from like Chicago deep house to like Black coffee in one episode. Like
Yeah.
it's like all of it. So yeah, and that was my show, and I started it my junior year and kept it going with all my semesters off and stuff. They were really cool
Yeah.
about it. So I kept it going from basically the beginning of COVID until I graduated in December.
That's amazing. I I feel like Black radio is such a influential thing that people
Yeah.
don't kind of realize what's like thinking about things like the Quiet Storm and everything that did for music. And it's really cool, I think, when, like you said, people get to focus on the totality of Black music and not just
Yeah.
what you might see that's being pushed by a certain group of people, or what is popular. And it's really comforting to see the passion and the love that you have for the music, because I think
Yeah.
like it's that's why I want to have these conversations with people who are like genuinely, like, I can tell it's in your bones, like the way you light up when you're
Thanks.
talking about it. It's like a thing
Yeah.
that I don't get to see a lot, that I need more of. But speaking of that, I would love to know, like, when your crafts found you, like at what point in your life do you think that you were like bitten by the bug that's creativity or art?
Yeah. Um, it's funny. I was just talking about this the other day, um, about being a journalist, because
Yeah.
I primarily consider myself a journalist. And
Yeah.
when I was in the third grade, I went to Sheridan Hills Elementary School, and there were like two things you could be if you were like a top student. You could be the safety patrol, which I just thought was for nerds. I'm sorry. Like, I just didn't want to be a cop. But the other option was to be on the morning announcements. And I was like, that's my
Yeah.
calling. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be on TV talking to
Right.
y'all about what's for lunch today and the controversies on campus and what to watch out for.
Yeah.
And like, so being on the morning announcements and getting picked for it was like the peak achievement for my 8-year-old self. And that was really the moment. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
because I was always like a really dramatic, attention seeking. Everyone's like, oh, she wants to be an actress. And I was like, I definitely do not want to be an actress. Like, and I never
Mm.
have.
Mm.
Um, but I've just always wanted to be in that world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I felt very like called to actors and just creative people.
Mm.
But it started with journalism, and so I wanted to be in the morning announcements. And I got shy, and I'm like, I don't want to be like on broadcast
Yeah.
journalism. Like, I just don't want to do that. This
Yeah.
doesn't need to be a part of it. So I got really into writing, and I used to read a lot of magazines. So pretty much like I always cared about media, So like the thing I really cared about in news like wasn't really like current events, unfortunately. And I did watch the news with my parents. They made me watch it every morning, but like out of like my own desire, I would just read entertainment magazines. So I had a subscription to Entertainment Weekly, Rolling Stone, Variety, and I would read IndieWire religiously. I just loved reading about media. I loved reading about music and about movies and TV. So then I'd like just love to write about it. And one of my favorite movies and like the movie that inspires me the most is Almost Famous by Cameron Crowe, 1999. That movie is about a kid that, you know, loves rock music, and he's a journal, and he did like moonlights as a Rolling Stone journalist even though he's only 15, and then goes on tour with this band. And it's just like so much great music is in that soundtrack, and it just felt like that's what I want to do. And Cameron Crowe, like it's about him really, because he was a teen journalist for Rolling Stone, and then he ended up being a film director. So like I literally feel like that's like my trajectory. Like yeah, so that movie really inspires me. And so, but it was when I got to college, I thought I was going to major in journalism, but then like everyone just started hating. Like this is in 2016, 2017 when we're picking like what we want to do, and everyone's like, journalism's dying. Like everyone is just like doing like the buzz stuff with the politics. And I was like, oh, I guess you're right. And I was like, and worse, I was like, I want to do entertainment journalism. Like I don't really care about this stuff. So I was like, how viable is that? I don't want to be like a BuzzFeed writer, no disrespect to them, but like it's just like just being like a web writer just like didn't, I don't know, just didn't seem like that would be fun for a long time. Like I do that, like I write articles still, but here and there at my like leisure. And so it was really like my senior year that I was like, no, I think I want to try like actually be a filmmaker, because I know like I've always been obsessed with film, with the Oscars, just with the behind the scenes. So I was just like, let me just do it. Like I love to read it, write about it so much. Let me just try making it. But I still minored in journalism, and I minored in creative writing. So I just kept honing all that stuff. And majority of the professional work I've done has been as a journalist, actually. So I worked as a reporter for a little bit. That was such a switch up and really intense, but it taught me a lot. It taught me that I don't want to be a reporter.
Yeah. Okay.
But
so how was that?
it taught me a lot.
How did that go?
So it was tough. So it was with WLRN, NPR of South Florida, and I got the internship.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's insane. Yeah.
So basically, because of my work at WVUM, I had a professor who was like, apply for this. I feel like you'd be a great fit. And I'm like, do you know what I do? Like, that's so cool, but like I'm not a news girl. Like that's kind of crazy. And so I did an interview in the pandemic, and they really liked me, but I didn't make it. And I was offended. I was like, the interview went so well, how could they like not pick me? And the thing is, it's an ego thing. Like I know I didn't want to be a reporter, but I was like, no, like they can't reject me. They can't underestimate me. So I applied again. And like they were like, we really commend you for coming back, because like it was actually a really hard decision to not pick you, and we feel like we made a mistake. And I'm like, yeah, you did. And so I stayed really true to myself. I was like, look, I'm not a news girl, but I'm really passionate about Black history and things that are going on in the Black community, with minorities, with women, and with arts and culture. And I want to have those beats, and I want to have the opportunity to do that. So that's what I focused on for the summer. Like I pitched some things about those things. One of my best and favorite pieces was about how global warming in South Florida specifically is adversely affecting impoverished people because of like redlining tactics and like little access to shading, water, AC. So like quite literally, there's like racist tactics that are making these environmental issues so much worse. I was really proud of that one. I did one on this teacher that does Montessori schooling, so she can teach critical race theory. And I also did like just covered like local art events. Like I did one about the now defunct, unfortunately, Tower Theater. They did a special event for Questlove's documentary Summer of Soul. And they did like a vinyl event for like the release, and so I recorded that, and that was cool. So yeah, I've been sticking to that. I have an article coming out next week about this really cool exhibit that you should check out in Fort Lauderdale's Old Dillard Museum. It's a collection of documents on the first ever death penalty case in Florida that involved 4 Black teenagers that were falsely accused of murdering a white man. So yeah, it's a little reported case, so it's pretty interesting that it was the president for the Miranda laws, and people don't know about that. So yeah.
How do you how do you choose like what? I know a lot of these things are very close to you or in your interest, but how do you choose from film to radio show to journalism? Like, how do you choose which one takes the time for the time being?
I'm kind of like just always working in things like
Yeah.
like recurringly, I guess I should say. Like I'm working on the article right now, but I'm also literally in the middle of a documentary right now,
Right.
and I'm also planning a podcast. So I'm
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
doing it all at the
Yeah.
same time. So there's like little windows in the day that I devote to each one,
Right.
but I'm not really that organized of a person. So whatever, it just flows through, and whichever
Yeah.
one I feel like doing at that time is going to get done. So yeah.
Has that ever, and this is me speaking through myself, has it ever hurt you? That kind of free flow process of attacking the things you want to do? Because I know sometimes it'll get too free to where a project is sitting in limbo for like 6 to 7 months, and I just because I haven't touched it or something comes up or
Right.
just like a project just keeps getting pushed back. How do you react to that?
Deadlines. So like when I'm writing an article, it's for the news, so I have a
Yeah,
hard deadline.
very true.
The documentary, we're paying attention to weather patterns because it's like an outdoor documentary,
Yeah,
so we have deadlines like that we have to
yeah,
shoot these certain things during these certain times.
yeah.
And then with the podcast, it's also a scheduled thing. So that's the way, and just having like these. I work really well under pressure, and
Mm,
I kind of only work under pressure, unfortunately.
mm, mm,
So deadlines, yeah. If
mm.
I don't have a deadline, then I probably won't do it. Is the thing.
Right, right.
If I don't feel
That's
pressure,
yeah, interesting. Has that been from like since you were young that the pressure thing, like is that applied to everything in your
like
life?
everything, like my
Everything.
homework has to be done like at the last second, or because like
Yeah,
I just can't.
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
That that's so crazy because that was me. I think until I got a job doing graphic design, and I was like, oh, there's like the deadline thing. There's like a lot of deadlines, even to
Yeah.
deadline out my ideas and my thought processes, and like they have to be so structured. So it was weird having to kind of restructure my process. Like it felt like I was betraying myself at first. I was like, I'm an artist. This is limiting to me. You want the best work out of me because I'm doing things 2 weeks, 3 weeks ahead instead of like
Mm.
before this happens. And it's definitely a different muscle to learn and to grow into that thing. But I think it's so important um for people who are creative. I don't think that's instilled in some creative fields because it is supposed
Yeah.
to be about feeling and emotion and all those things, which is very interesting.
I will say it's because like I work for myself in that way. Like
Yeah,
I'm my manager.
yeah,
Um, I do like the way I make money isn't to have anything to do with what I do creatively.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm making myself do these things. No one's making me do them.
yeah.
If I were forced, that'd
Mhm.
probably be different. Because I also hate being forced to do things.
Yeah,
Like a deadline, I don't feel like it's like an aggressive thing. I just feel like
yeah,
it's something to look forward to in a way.
yeah,
But when
yeah.
someone's like making you and checking up on you in that way, and
Right.
you not having the freedom to do something, that's
Yeah,
I can understand how that could feel
yeah,
stifling.
for
I feel
sure.
liberated because I'm doing it for like completely myself.
No, yeah. That's why I think it's important for people who can do multiple things at one time to have an outlet that is
Yeah.
something like this is that for me. Like this is a place where I can just get recharged by having conversation with people and you know like you said have deadlines, but it feels important to me. It feels different than just making a flyer for a company, which is important to them, and there's a lot of responsibility in that. But I think not having to question the intention behind something or having to wrap my mind around a project is something that's just from me. It's in my body and it just comes out is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did your background? I know you're Trinidadian. What did that? How did that affect your your current state?
It affects every state. Like, I feel like first and foremost,
Yeah.
like in my inner self, like in the outside world, I
Yeah.
feel like the child of immigrants.
Yeah.
The way, like I'm obviously American. I was born here. I was raised here. But I was definitely in home. We were very raised with those, traditional ideals, and I would say foreign way of doing things. So yeah, just even like interacting with people, there are certain things where I'm just like, oh, we do things certain differently, and like even though I'm about to be 24, like the way I was raised sticks, and my culture sticks, and it's so refreshing living in South Florida. I feel it's important that we live in a place where our culture is more prominent.
Yeah.
But it's so funny because Caribbean people have this way of thinking that we're the center of the universe, and we like tend to forget that we're actually like really, really small islands. Like
100%.
Jamaica's the biggest island, but it's not even like as big as like a state.
Exactly.
And Trinidad's smaller than Israel. So, but we seem to think that we have all this like dominance, and it's so funny that
Yeah.
because I was talking to my friend that lives in LA, and she's um Indian.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, did you know that I'm Indian, by the way?" Because we were just talking about it so much. She's like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh no, because like I'm Trini, and a lot of us are ethnically Black and Indian, and that's what
Right.
I am. I'm literally half Black and half Indian." And um we were just talking I was talking about like West Indian food, and she's like, I've never had West Indian food. I'm like, you're literally Indian. Like, what do you mean you've never had West Indian food?
It's
And I just
crazy.
really like they just don't have it in
Yeah.
California. But California, like the place where I think is like everyone thinks of as like the street food
Melting pot.
capital, like
Yeah.
where immigrants thrive, and
Yeah.
they don't have us. So it's like we're really Caribbean people have three options really. It's South Florida,
Yeah.
which includes Tampa and Orlando, New York, and London, England. Those are the three places Caribbean people go, and those were the
That's
options
very
for
true.
my parents to settle down, and they chose
Yeah.
Florida. But like
That's
those
funny.
are the three,
Yeah.
and that's where we exist. So, but yeah, so I live in one. I'm fortunate enough to live in a place where we exist, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel empowered to connect to my culture,
Yeah.
um, in my creative space, and just seek out fellow first gen or even people who've just immigrated. Like
Yeah.
it's cool to connect with so many of us in that way, if that answers your question.
No, that's an amazing answer. That's so funny. I think Canada is also a place that
Oh,
I've
Canada, yeah,
found
you're right.
a lot of people just and it's so funny how I have a Canadian friend, but even like some of the slang she uses, I'm just like, where did you get that from? Because that's not a. She's like, yeah, it's Canadian. I'm like, no, 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 no. That can't just be like it's impossible. But it's so beautiful how those cultures kind of just pass through and touch everything, um, in all those ways. That's fun. So it had to affect the music. Is there any like specific music you were listening to growing up that is still kind of current with you right now?
um yeah, I mean, my parents have liked everything.
Mm,
Like they are Trini, but at their core they're people who grew up in the 70s. Like they
yeah,
love funk.
yeah,
They love also like 80s music, like
yeah,
80s soul music. So I grew up with a lot of funk and soul, really. Of course, a lot of island music too, but primarily like the way I separate our culture from like other Americans is the way
mm,
like we celebrate Christmas.
mm,
It's very much like a party, and our Christmas music is so lit. Like
mm.
that's what I always remember.
Alright.
Yeah, because I hate Christmas carols. Like I hate like Western Christmas music. It
Yeah,
annoys me. And like I'm not a Christmas hater. I'm not a Grinch, but like I hate Christmas music. I really do. And maybe it's because I worked in retail for so long, but I really
that'll
hate
do it.
Christmas music.
Yeah,
But our music is so fun. It makes me enjoy Christmas, and that feels like Christmas, but it's so tropical,
yeah.
and it's so anti like what you would think of when
So
you
it's Christmas
traditionally think of
themed
Christmas.
still.
It's like about eating your ham and having a
Yeah,
party. Like literally, those are the lyrics, and
yeah,
you know, it's like we eat our ham. It's just and we're just
yeah,
jamming. It's just cool, you know.
yeah,
So we just like everything is just really casual. Is what I really appreciate about us at the end of the day. Um, and what I appreciate about island living and island culture is that there's like this awareness that it's all out of our hands and we just
yeah,
want to party.
yeah.
So I connect with that a lot.
That is the default. You just gotta relax and not stress too much.
Yeah.
No, it's very beautiful. Speaking of community and I know through this conversation you value community a lot, and just curious as to how and if you are curating a new community for yourself and other people around you, or what that looks like for you to kind of be in this film world and journalism world, and how you reach out and communicate with different people in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think my biggest goal currently is, or one of them is building a community of creatives. So just like, oh, I know a person that can do this, I know a person that can do that. You can call me for this, and just rely on each other, because right now I think that's missing in a lot of the creative spaces. I think there's so many creative people here, but I think a lot of us are, either we're shy, or we don't want to give people a chance, or we're reluctant. And some of us are just like, need to be pushed. And but I think if you try, I think beautiful things can happen. So I've been finding it really important to be able to rely on people that you respect. And my goal is to bring more Black women in my space to collaborate with. Because right now I love my collaborators right now, but a lot of them are men.
Yeah.
And so I want to see more of a reflection, and I think that'll bring out great ideas too, to be able to communicate
Yeah.
with people on a different level. I think it's really important, as a minority, to seek community and validation.
Yeah.
So that right now, that's what I'm trying to work towards.
Yeah, that's amazing, because I think, like you mentioned, I think creativity can feel so lonely sometimes,
Yeah.
because it's like you're working through what your mind is going through. And I remember even till almost like my year before college, I was like, there's nobody like me here.
Yeah.
But I just was in a predominantly white area, so everything I was creating was like so unique to me. And I think there is some kind of, not God complex, that's not the right word, but there is some kind of feeling of like, oh my goodness, I'm the only one doing this, that kind of helped me survive that.
Yeah.
That was then broken in the best way when I just was like invited to the show in Miami, and I was like, oh my goodness, everybody dresses like me. This is
Yeah, you're
so
not
good
that
to
unique,
see.
but in the best
Right,
way.
right, in the
Like,
best way possible. It was like a hug, but it's like, hey, like you don't have to be afraid to
you
pull
have
off
your
a weird
people.
fit. Exactly. And
Yeah.
I think for the next generation of creatives and just people coming up around Florida, I hope that like people like you, and there's other people doing like the flea markets, let's get together, and all these different events that are coming up, and some of the egos are going down. People are just like, let's just break bread and not go into this trying to think about who's gonna profit from one or another. And those things are important. Like
Yeah.
we gotta support each other financially where we can, but
Doing favors is really important at this stage,
exactly.
and I just like, and I really respect people for having, knowing their worth is what I
Yeah,
would say, but
yeah,
also remember where you started.
exactly.
And there's nothing, I don't know, when you give back, things come back to you, is
Yeah,
how I see things. So um it's like that, what's that word, is it symbiotic relationship?
I think so. Yeah,
I hope
speaking
so.
of reciprocity, I don't know why that word.
The word, and
Yeah,
it's like,
one of the words.
for example, I have a friend, he edited Jaded,
Yeah,
and he is doing his short film, and he wants me to assistant direct for it, but he's like, the budget isn't there to compensate, but I will edit your documentary. And I'm like, okay, that is a really fair deal. Like, yeah. So I think things like that, like trading labor, in this space is really valuable, because then we all get what we need. Um, I help you get your film made, you help me get my film made, in different ways, at different processes, but and stages. But that is, I think, a really special thing. And I think if more people, you know, use that frame of mind, that like, this is someone you can collaborate with and use
yeah,
in the future. And I don't mean use in
yeah, yeah,
a cynical way. I mean it in like a really valuable way, like someone is of importance to you.
yeah,
Think of it that way. So maybe that's how you choose your collaborators,
yeah.
because you also respect them.
No, that's a good word. Yeah, I was listening to another podcast this morning about um even with guests, like just being so specific about who you bring on, the energies that you bring around you. Because I think in the opposite way, you can be so worried that I don't have anybody around me that you kind of just give to people who don't respect you or value you or who don't think highly of you, and it's really interesting to think about what the space is going to be like in the next like 4 or 5 years, because I think there is a new era of like intentionality that's really beautiful to see with everybody trying to
Yeah.
be more positive and get some stuff done. But in that same coin, where do you see yourself in 5 years if you can think that far?
I'm not a planner.
Right.
And
Right.
like whenever I'm asked these questions in like interviews, I'm like, I'm literally lying. Like,
Yeah.
cause I don't know. In 5 years, I will be 29.
Mm. What did that feel like just now?
I just had to count it real quick to confirm. Yo, that's craziness.
Yeah.
29. I don't know if I'm in Miami at this
Mm.
point. I mean, this is my home and I love it here, but
Yeah.
I would hope that I've finally moved on. I don't feel like my business is done here, so that's why I'm not like forcing myself to get out,
Yeah.
but I'm
Yeah.
hoping it will be by then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm, I guess, I'll just shoot for the stars. Hopefully, I'm like in a place where I'm pitching a TV show that has the
Yeah.
possibility of getting picked up.
Yeah.
That would be super ideal. Yeah.
That's good.
Living a good life, traveled,
Yeah.
eating well.
Eating well. Eating well. Are you
Yeah.
a foodie?
I'm not, but I am. Like, I
Okay.
don't prioritize, just eating great, but I love to eat. Like,
Okay.
I really value the eating experience. I'm like, oh,
That's a
this
great
is so
answer.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Food is important. Food will
yeah,
dictate a lot about how your day goes sometimes, and
exactly. Yeah.
it's really specific that way. But no, that's very beautiful. That's a very I'm just like taking in everything you just said, and it's just really cool to have this conversation. I was very excited. I wasn't nervous, but it was like that thing where I was like, like I
Anticipation.
wonder, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
anticipation, and it just is cool again to talk to somebody who's as passionate and as clear. Like the way you communicate your ideas is so
Oh, thanks.
straightforward, and it's easy to. I just was sitting back and saying nothing for a while. I'm like, yes, I
Cool.
don't have to do a lot. It's great. Um, I wanted to talk again quickly about Puss in Boots
Yo,
because it was on your
yo.
list, and I started today. I didn't get to finish it.
Oh, jeez.
But why is that such an important movie for you right now?
Because I love cats, first of
Yeah,
all. I don't have a cat, unfortunately, because my mom, I'm looking at her right now.
yeah,
She thinks cats are literally demons, that like basically demons are housing cats' bodies, and so she hates cats.
right,
And it's disturbing to me because I love
yeah,
cats. They're so cute. I feel like I really identify with cats. Like
yeah,
whenever I go to a friend's house and they have cats, like they just grab towards me, I gravitate towards them. Like
yeah.
we just understand each
It's a
other.
vibe. Yeah,
Um and yeah, I just feel like a cat
yeah,
sometimes. I like to just curl up and meow.
yeah,
But yeah, so I just love cats and um I love Antonio Banderas. I was just so excited for it.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but it also surprised me. Like I really was just going in for the LOLs. Like I wasn't
Right,
expecting to like, because it was really the fact that everyone on Twitter was like, which is actually like really good.
right.
I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna watch it, but like y'all are saying it's
No, I
like
have to.
really
Yeah,
good. Like what?
yeah,
Um, and then what really sold me was that apparently like it was about anxiety. Like that was a theme and how Puss handles his anxiety and his panic attacks. And I was like, I'm sold. So yeah, and then like watching it, I was like, wow, like not this movie for children really like getting me to understand something deeper about myself, like and like how to process things. I really felt seen by the
that's
Shrek
beautiful.
universe in that one. And it was just cool as like, my inner child seeing the Shrek universe change in that way because the animation
Right,
style is different.
right.
And it's gonna be really interesting to see how that whole universe changes now
Yeah,
post this movie. So
yeah.
yeah.
I wasn't sure about it because last thing I saw from Shrek was the musical, and I was like,
Like the live action musical.
yeah,
I didn't watch it. Me and my friend clicked on it and we could not get past the first 5 minutes. We just like it was just a ridiculous experience.
It's
I couldn't.
it's too much to handle, and so I was like, this is gonna be another thing like that. And I like again, I've been maybe 20 minutes into it, but already I was like, oh, this is they're taking some chances. Like this is really cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And like that's my biggest thing. It what disappoints me about media today, like my biggest
Yeah.
thing is animation because
Mm,
there's so much potential for animation to be crazy and boundless and so innovative, but
yeah.
the studios, capitalism, like you're not
Yeah.
allowed to take any chances. And that's
Right.
why I just feel like Disney, for example, has just been so stale for the past 5 years. Um, I did like Encanto and Turning Red, but they
Yeah.
still didn't. And maybe that's just like time has to tell, but I feel like they still didn't reach like the heights that like a Lilo and Stitch did
Yeah.
for our
Yeah.
generation of
Yeah.
like when we were kids.
Yeah.
So I've just been like really disappointed in Disney. I've been really disappointed in DreamWorks. Really disappointed in Sony. Sony is literally just
Oh yeah.
Minions. Um, so yeah, but you know, then Into the Spider Verse comes out, and I'm like, okay, this is
We're
where
back.
mainstream, at least mainstream
Yeah.
animation, needs to do this. And
Yeah.
so the fact that Puss in Boots, took notes from that, like that's just what I want to see. I'm just tired of like the copy paste
Yeah.
general faces that Disney
Yeah.
really is doing a lot right now. It's so
Yeah.
irritating. Um, so yeah, it was really cool to see that, and that's really just like the team of animators. And I think that's just a testament. If you when you let animators just do what
Do the
they
thing.
literally know how to do, great
Exactly.
things can happen. Um, and then in terms of like television animation, it's just so sad what's going on with shows just getting pulled off of platforms and just like some of
Yeah.
the IP just dies. There's no royalties for the creators that spent years of their life building these universes, and there's just no respect for animators, at least in by major platforms and studios. And I don't know, animation has so much potential to be incredible if we just stop stifling
Yeah.
creatives. So
Yeah.
that's my hot
It
take on animation.
for, for some reason it's still talked about. It's like, oh, this. I'm surprised this movie was this either like heartwarming or smart or. And I think people still attribute animation to for children for some reason. I
Yeah,
think it's weird seeing like you mentioned a lot of the Netflix properties that are either modeled after a show that's already in existence that are just like a copy paste, like, oh, they're doing the same thing but in space now, and it's like, all right, cool. Like that doesn't necessarily do
yeah,
much, but it's really cool to see like movies like everything everywhere all at once, and
yeah,
a
yeah.
bunch of other things that have coming out now, and the energy behind these
Energy is
things.
a really good
it,
word for it.
it's so cool because eh, it felt a little concerning with the pandemic and
Yeah,
just everything, and people being, oh, we're only coming out for blockbusters, we're only doing this for superhero movies. And I think now the audience is a lot smart with what they want and what they want to see, and just respecting, like you said, the animators and how are they working and how are they getting paid and all these different things, like dictating what gets supported or not. So it's interesting seeing how the curtain is being undone, and how much like the thing with Sonic when they put out the weird animation first, and everybody's like, yeah, let's
oh
get
my
get them back to
god.
that. But then it's like, okay, those people are doing even more work to do all that stuff. So it's crazy how much control I feel like the audience has now, and I don't think studios have the best idea of how to handle that, because it feels like it just goes back to, okay, make people work more, and
And it's just the
yeah,
capitalistic like framework
yeah,
that's driving, and I think that's like literally crushing
yeah,
entertainment. Like we just have to keep fighting against like the
yeah,
monotony of the machine, I guess,
yeah,
is
yeah,
my only way to, yeah. So just like doing things on your own on the fringe and just being authentic, but
yeah,
like in a mainstream world, how do you achieve that? And I don't know, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's hard. It's cool when things like people like Issa Rae like pop up and then maintain, and just all these people who are putting out these different looks at stories. And I feel like I was out of the general area of TV and film for a while because I just kind of put my head down to work on like
right.
graphic design. And it made me realize recently, just like watching a couple of things, I was like, oh man, like this is why I wanted to go to school for this. Like I get it. because it does dictate so much. It dictates how people dress. It's dictates what music people listen to.
Yep.
It's like the biggest thing in the world, and I think people right now are in a very interesting position where a lot of the content they're taking in, they're choosing to take it in, you know, and I think it's really interesting to again be intentional about who you're supporting and why, and just trying to get as many new stories and people to see themselves and things. It's really cool what is happening right now.
Yeah, and even like Quinta Brunson, like, and the thing
Yeah.
about Quinta and Issa, what they're doing is not, and I mean this in the most complimentary way possible, they're not doing anything innovative or extreme or super imaginative. They're just putting Black people in common scenarios, and it's gold.
Right.
It's so great,
Right.
and people gravitate towards it because it's just natural, and that's what people want to see. They want to see themselves on TV. It's so important to see yourself in the media that you watch because it can inspire you. Like Abbott Elementary is literally the reason why I decided to just take a leap and start substitute teaching, and I'm about to
Wow.
start a teaching job next week. Like
Wow.
I'm about to be a legit like English teacher, and it's really like I always did have. I have such a
Yeah.
passion for education,
Yeah.
but I just never actually thought about actualizing it until I saw that show, and that's just a TV show, you know. Like it
Yeah.
could really,
There's a
inspire
lot.
you. Like you see a Black person on a regular TV show just doing like an admirable job that
Right.
you maybe want, like that might like trickle into your real life and
Yeah.
inspire you. So that's why it's so important to see yourself in the media that you consume
Yeah.
and feel spoken to. Yeah.
And I don't know why people can't grasp that for some reason, because it'll be like, oh man, this actor's been casted as a traditionally white person, and they're like, what do you mean this is fundamentally da da da? And I'm just like, man,
Yeah.
like it isn't that serious, and but it is at the same time, because it like you said, lets people see themselves. And I remember like watching Dwayne Wayne on a different world, like as a kid, and being like, oh man, I could be cool. Like I could walk around and be smart. He's a math teacher. I was like, I could be smart and Black and get fits off and do my thing, talk to
Yeah.
people, like, and it's just it's those little things that kind of go unnoticed, that when you get a little older, you start thinking about, like, man, this moment really meant a lot to me, and this moment really meant a lot to me, and I'm glad everybody's getting their shine. You know.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's just great. And like now that, they're breaking that door for natural realistic Black people, like now the floodgates are open, like maybe we can
Yeah.
start seeing more supernatural things
Yeah. Yeah.
and things of just like different experimental genres because now
Yeah.
there's more visibility in general.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. No,
that's what I would
100%.
say. Yeah.
That's yeah. Man, I had a blast having this conversation with you.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
before we end, is there anything you want to talk about quickly, or any questions or any shout outs you want to give to people? Anything you want to say?
Yes, first of all, I just want hopefully by the time this releases that I've secured Beyonce tickets. So I just want to put that out there. Like for good energy. I don't care what city I see her in, I just need to see her. So like if
You go
my
fly to
friend
you
like
go fly to Beyonce?
I got picked for the Miami show to get
Yeah.
tickets, but my friends are like, "Well, let's just see if it's cheaper somewhere else." And I'm like, "Let's not." Sure, fine,
Yeah.
fine.
Answer.
Like
Yeah.
as long as it happens,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, Renaissance was my favorite album of 2022, and like it was a tough pick because 2022 I thought was a pretty good year. But
Yeah. Good
um,
year.
yeah, so Beyonce, shout out to Beyonce for just
Shout out
making the
Beyonce.
best music ever.
100%.
Also boo hoo to the Grammys for being idiots once again and depriving her of album of the year. I was very passionate about this. I just have to talk about it. I've been talking about it to
Had
everyone
her
who will
there and
listen.
everything, sitting
This is
there
just, y'all are just lame for
for
that,
what?
messy for that, and it's like to not even give it to Bad Bunny is weird to
Exactly.
me.
Yeah.
Because like because even though Renaissance was my favorite album, I can acknowledge like Infernal T was the biggest album
No,
of
exactly.
2022. So
Every
like to
car, every
sidestep
radio
him
station.
to give it to Harry, and like I am a Harry stan, but I had
Yeah.
to. I'm not one of for the duration of Black History Month. I'm not a Harry Styles fan because
Yeah.
it just doesn't feel right. So I'll resume. I'll resume my Harry
I,
listenings next month. And regardless, like his self-titled debut is still his best album. Like I don't even understand how you gonna win an album of the year for like so far your worst album. I'm just being serious, like whatever.
yeah.
So, but As far as shout outs, I just want to thank everyone who watched Jaded, everyone who helped out on Jaded, donated. Shout outs, Emmanuel Gorin for designing this shirt. This is an official 2022 3 Points shirt. He's an artist. He actually went to UM. We were in the radio station together at different times. But yeah, so really cool person to follow. I have another friend, Ale Moros, who's a great painter. She painted the photo that is the profile picture for Shy City Films. It's a painting of me being all moody as I am. Who else? Paper Water, really great South Florida electronic duo. They're Black. Hopefully, you're gonna have some cool collabs coming up with them. The Boy Garden, that's what my documentary is on. They are in Sistrunk, Fort Lauderdale. They're a community garden, so definitely follow them, hit them up for fresh produce and great vibes. What else? I'm working on a script, or I finished the script, so I'm actually going to be working on a new short film in the coming months. So that's super duper exciting. The biggest challenge is going to be finding Caribbean actors. So if y'all know people, direct them towards me. I'm looking for an elderly woman with an accent, preferably Trini, but I'll settle for anything that is Caribbean. And then a man, like a man in his like 40s. So yeah, let me know, guys. I anticipate this will be a journey. This is going to be a tough casting journey, so I'm excited for it, but it'll be cool. And definitely stay tuned for my other stuff. Like I said, I'm working on a documentary. So I'm working on building up my film page, Insta, Shy City Films. So watch out for GoFundMe's because we need some funding to get these projects off the ground. But I'm really excited about that. Lots of things coming up, so just stay tuned. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you for coming on, spending time, and having this conversation, and blessing everybody with your presence. Hope everybody listening has a good night or day or wherever you are. All right. Peace.
Happy Sunday. Have a great week.